Julius Caesar, Act 2, Scene 2. Thunder and lightning. Caesar enters in his nightgown, or his, maybe like pajamas. Neither the sky nor the earth have been quiet tonight. Calphurnia cried out 3 times in her sleep. Help, someone! They're murdering Caesar! Caesar! Who's there? Servant enters. My lord. Go tell the priests to perform a sacrifice immediately and bring me their interpretation of the results. I will, my lord. Calphurnia. What are you doing, Caesar? Are you planning to go out? You're not leaving the house today. I will go out. The things that threaten me have only seen my back. When they see my face, they will vanish. Calphurnia replies, Caesar, I've never believed in omens, but now they frighten me. A servant told me the night watchman saw horrid sights too, but different ones from what we heard and saw. A lioness gave birth in the streets, and graves cracked open and thrust out their dead. Fierce, fiery warriors fought in the clouds in the usual formations of war, ranks and squadrons, until the clouds drizzled blood unto the Capitol. The noise of battle filled the air, and horse neighed, and dying men groaned, and ghosts shrieked and squealed in the streets. Oh, Caesar, these things are beyond anything I've seen before, and I'm afraid. How can we avoid what all the gods want to happen? But I will go out, for these bad omens apply to the world in general as much as they do to me. And what he means this is bad things happen in the world. These omens or these bad signs that they believe are happening. He's saying that this happens in the world every day. It's not triggered just to him. And that's just what he's wanting to think. We know this dramatic irony. We know that there is something bad that is going to happen to Caesar. Calphurnia says, when beggars die, there is no comets in the sky. The heavens only announce the death of princes. So what she's saying here is, princes and those that are leaders, those are the ones that they believe that the heavens sent signs for their death. Cowards die many times before their deaths. The brave experience death only once. Of all the strange things I've ever heard, it seems most strange to me that men fear death, given that death, which can't be avoided, will come whenever it wants. The servant enters. What do the priests say? They don't want you to go out today. They pulled out the guts of the sacrificed animal and couldn't find its heart. Did God do this to test my bravery? They're saying I'd been an animal without a heart is staying home today out of fear, so I won't. Danger knows that Caesar is more dangerous than he is. We are 2 lions born on the same day in the same litter, and I'm the older and more terrible. I will go out. Keep in mind, though, that people during this time period were extremely superstitious. They looked for signs in everything that they done, that the universe or the gods, because they would have, believed in Roman mythology and multiple gods, and so they believed that the gods were showing them signs. And so when Caesar asked for the servant to go ask the priest to make a sacrifice and tell them what they saw, and the priest didn't find a heart, they tried to tell Caesar that he shouldn't go out, right? Because they couldn't find a heart, and they took this as a bad sign. But Caesar is not taking this advice, and that's really important, because it's going to lead to his destruction, his negligence to listen to the advice that others give him. And he's saying that it's the gods telling him that he's not brave enough. Calphurnius says, "Alas, my lord, your confidence is getting the better of your wisdom. Don't go out today. Say that's my fear that keeps you inside and not your own. We'll send Mark Antony to the Senate house, and he'll say that you're sick today." She kneels. "Let me, on my knees, win you over to this plan." "All right," Mark Antony will say, "I'm not well, and to please you, I'll stay home." So she gets up, and Decius enters. Here's Decius Brutus. He'll tell them so. "Caesar, hail Caesar, good morning, worthy Caesar. I've come to take you to the Senate house. And you've come at a good time, so you can convey my greetings to the senators and tell them that I won't come today. It won't be true to say that I can't come, and even less true to say that I don't dare come. I simply won't come. Tell them so, Decius." Calphurnius says, "Say sick." "Would I send a lie? Have I accomplished so much in a battle, but now afraid to tell some old men the truth?" "Most mighty Caesar, give me some reason so I won't be laughed at when I tell them so." "The reason is that it's what I want. I'm not coming. That's enough for the Senate. But for your private satisfaction, because I love you, I'll tell you. Calphurnia, my wife, is keeping me at home. Last night she dreamed she saw a statue of me with 100 holes in it, like a fountain with pure blood flowing from it, and many happy Romans came smiling and washed their hands in it. She takes these signs for warnings and predictions of terrible evils to come, and on her knee she begged me to stay at home today. This dream has been interpreted all wrong. It was good and a lucky vision, your statue spouting blood through many holes in which many smiling Romans bathed, means that you'll provide great Rome with sustaining blood, and that great men will strive to get some token of approval from your holy blood. This is what Calphurnius' dream meant." Caesar replies, "You've offered an excellent interpretation. I will have when you hear the rest of what I have to say. The Senate has decided to give mighty Caesar a crown today. If you send them word that you won't come, they might change their minds. Besides, someone is likely to joke, 'Adjourn the Senate until some other time when Caesar's wife has had a better dream.' If you hide yourself, won't they whisper, 'Caesar is afraid'? Pardon me, Caesar, my high hopes for your advancement force me to tell you this. My love gets the better of my manners." How foolish of your fears seem now, Calphurnia. I'm ashamed that I yielded to them. Give me my robe, because I'm going. So he's completely gotten the warnings that his wife Calphurnia has given him, and he's just buying into this nonsense that Decius is feeding him. Enter Publis, Brutus, Ligarius, Metellus, Casca, Trebonius, and Cinna. "And look, here's Publius come to fetch me." "Good morning, Caesar." "Welcome, Publius." "What, Brutus, are you up this early too?" "Good morning, Casca. Cassius Ligarius, I was never your enemy so much as the sickness that made you so thin. What time is it?" Brutus says, "Caesar, the clock has struck 8. I thank you all for your trouble and courtesy." Antony enters. "See, even Antony, who stays up all night partying, is awake. Good morning, Antony." Antony replies, "And to you, most noble Caesar. Tell them to prepare the other rooms for guests. I'm to blame for making you wait for me. Now Cinna, now Metellus, now Trebonius. I have an hour-long matter to discuss with you. Remember to see me today. Stay near me so I'll remember." Trebonius, "Caesar, I will," speaking quietly to himself. "In fact, I'll be so near that your best friends will wish they'd been further away. So he's kind of, talking to himself about this. He really can't even wait, it seems, to take out this plan that they have, what they've conspired to do. Caesar says, "Good friends, go in and leave some wine with me, and we'll leave together. I'm sorry, have some wine with me, and we'll leave together like friends." And Brutus says to himself, "What are we now? Well, only like friends? Oh, Caesar makes my heart ache." They all exit. Artemidorus enters, reading a letter. He reads aloud the letter. "Caesar, beware of Brutus. Watch Cassius. Don't go near Caspa. Keep an eye on Cinna. Don't trust Trebonius. Pay attention to Metellus Cimber. Decius Brutus doesn't love you. You've wronged Cassius Ligarius. These men all have one intention, and it's directed against Caesar. If you aren't immortal, watch those around you. A sense of security opens the door to conspiracy. I pray that the mighty gods defend you. Your friend, Artemidorus." I'll stand here until Caesar passes by, and I'll give him this as though it's a petition. My heart regrets that good men aren't safe from the bite of jealous rivals. If you read this, Caesar, you might live. If not, the fates are on the side of the traitors. So Artemidorus, he knows what's going on. He's trying to warn Caesar, and remember, he's alone on stage, so this would have been a soliloquy. And he's getting ready to try to help Caesar survive.